and welcome to We Women Want. This is our weekly show where we deal with women's issues, we celebrate the wins, we also empathize and find support for those who want. We've dealt with issues ranging from body shaming to breast cancer, to health issues, to domestic violence, to laws that help women, laws that don't help women, and so on. But today we're going to be talking about the topic we talked in, I think, at extent for a long length. We've dealt with it earlier, but this is a topic that needs to keep looking back again and again. This is about relationships. We're talking about the new age woman, marriage or relationships. Since today's world, marriage is not the end. There are live-in relationships, there are single women parents, there are kids who want girls who have putting careers first, they freeze their eggs, they say motherhood comes second and marriage comes third even. So how does this new age woman redefine herself, and how does society look at it? How do the in-laws react to it, because they belong to an earlier generation? We're going to be taking a look at the role of the new age woman in relationships. Today joining me on the panel is Dr. Vimal. She's a psychologist. We have Harshali Singh. She's a member judge at the District Consumer Commission, and she's also the author of the popular Haveli series. And Namita Kohli, she's a principal designer at Visma Atria Interiors. Dr. Vimal, this conversation really came out of a conversation between you and me, and you're counseling a lot of people, you deal with a lot of young kids and young couples. So how do you see the roles being redefined, and is it because the woman has changed more than the man has changed?
Yes, I think the priorities have changed. I think the realization that a woman is an individual and has her own identity has surfaced over the years due to various things that women have experienced. And I feel that because of the interpretation of their own experiences, they have come to the realization that they need to be financially independent, which is priority. They need to monetize the competence or the skill that they have, which could be whatever profession one follows. And yes, they do want a family, they do want kids, but it has to be as an individual and not only as the role of a wife or a daughter-in-law.
So Harshali, the priorities have changed, so do you see that reflecting in your work also? The books that you write, are they, taking in the change?
Certainly, I think priorities have kind of shifted. The balance has shifted a lot. You see, in the courtrooms, you see many more young girls coming in as interns, as young lawyers, choosing a profession which was earlier a male bastion. Now, more women want to, go towards a professional independence where they are able to earn for themselves. As Doctor was already saying, that it's very essential for the today's generation to be financially independent, so that they're not looking at someone else in case they need help. In case they are able to earn for themselves. And as mothers also, I think our generation is telling our children and bringing them up in such a way, especially the girls, that, marriage and everything is secondary. You need to be financially independent, have a house of your own, at least a small studio apartment if possible, and, go take the next step only at that time. And I think that's become the need of the hour. It's become the call of the hour. And it is a clarion call when it comes to it. And automatically what I'm seeing around me gets reflected in my books as well.
Okay.
Because all the women that I write about are women who may be rooted in the tradition and cultures of our country, but eventually they are realizing that they need to work on themselves and kind of slowly work towards removing that internalized misogyny that seems to have seeped into our DNA and stuck to it. So they're trying their level best to find their solutions so that they are independently standing on their own 2 feet.
In fact, Namita, a lot of our traditions are also, she talks about misogynist, this thing, or patriarchal, like a Kanyadan, or, rituals that precede the marriage also kind of set the rules of engagement, that, you are a commodity or a Kanyadan, or you are leaving your own house to go to your parents' house, to your in-laws' house. So there is a lot of sacrifice from the word go, from the rituals itself, and that kind of sets the tone for marriage. Now, I know you personally also, I know that you have a daughter who's, so you are really someone who has seen both sides of the spectrum. So, and also I think it was in the 90s that, if I'm not wrong, so that took some guts, Namita, especially even today, but even then, at the last minute, the cards were printed and you took a stand.
So, I think my dad and my mom brought us up as, as two individuals rather than as two girls. He said that if there's anything that a guy can do, you can do. You have to stand up for yourself. You have to be able to, to face the world yourself. And you have to be responsible for your own decisions. I mean, whatever happened, it was very unfortunate. However, at that time, my dad did say, we were like 3 weeks from the wedding, and my dad did say the cards were printed, they had even been sent out. And my dad did say that you make the decision. And I thought a lot about it. And I said that if there is someone who's not going to be able to stand up for me at this time, this is the time for me to put my foot down. And as a matter of fact, I'm so proud to say that my parents supported me completely. Actually, we had paid up for some catering and stuff. So on one of the days that was supposed to be the function, my parents actually had a dinner at home. And they celebrated and they said that our daughter today is safe and she's here and she has a life ahead. This is just a beginning and she has a life ahead and she is going to be okay. And that pretty much, and I'm talking about now 35 odd years ago, it was a difficult call to take because people did feel that, oh my God, if a girl's getting married, if she's already got engaged, then it's very difficult. And with what face are you going to show the world? But they took an amazing stand, and that made me what I am today. And I think I wear that badge with pride that I was able to be strong enough because my parents stood behind me and made me strong. And I think that is what we need to tell our girls even today, is that while it's great to have a marriage, it's great to have a partner, but today there is so much happening in the world. You don't really have to be in a stereotype, typical marriage setup. People can live in. There are people that are gay. People are in gay relationships. Why should we stereotype anything? We should be out of the stereotype. And women should stand up for themselves the way men have stood up for themselves. I think that's the important part.
Okay, before I go to Dr. Mohan, one more question. Is that the reason why, I think you were straight out of college.
Correct.
Is that the reason why you decided to go on for a career? Because I think now you're running a very successful design company. Was that one of the reasons that propelled you?
Absolutely, Priya, absolutely. Because I thought to myself, I said, today this has happened to me. What if it happens to me again? At what place am I going to be? So if I make a ground for myself, if and if I'm able to make any mark for myself, it doesn't matter whether you're earning in thousands or in millions or in lakhs or crores. You need to earn, you need to have some self-worth. When you have self-worth, you feel confident, you're able to, and I think at the end of the day, it's like you'll say, doctor, anything that goes with the woman today, we've been so suppressed always as women per se all over the world. Today, when you get out and if you feel confident to get out and to go and say something, to go out and be yourself, I think that's the important part of it. And that was the reason why I said I needed to be financially independent so that if ever, God forbid, anything was to happen, I did not have to rely on a man, on my husband for it, or my father for that means. I didn't want to go back to my dad and say, okay, dad, help me now, I wanted to be standing on my own feet. And I think that is the prime reason, Priya, yes.
But that's the thing, it's changing, and the girls' outlooks are changing. We did a show on Women's Day where we had a young college students there, and they all said their priorities were career first, motherhood second. They say we'll freeze our eggs, there's IVF, there are various ways, and third is marriage, companionship, yeah. But, is marriage, how do you see the future,
Future depends on what the choices we make today. And I think that change begins with a question. Like you said, that you questioned what will I do if it happens again? And there are no guarantees in life. So I think that all changes emerge from a question, provided the question is inward and not outward, and you make that change to your own life. And then when you inspire people, you may inspire two people nobody knows you, but it's a change, and it gets the ball rolling. I see that a lot of people now question the value of marriage. They question the purpose of marriage and the function of marriage. Because earlier, I think we were just programmed to believe that you study, You may do a job as a hobby for about 6 months or a year till your parents find you the right match, and then you're married off. And then you're somebody else's responsibility, and that's so okay for the rest of your life, regardless of how you're treated after that. But today, I don't think the woman wants to put up with that, and I don't think it works. That's not the structure or the model of relationships that work for the women, and they question it. And if they're financially independent, it makes a lot of difference, because that's what sets the class apart. And I think it's that independence which is giving a rise to many, many questions as to why, how can it be done differently? And so the patriarchy is breaking, and the values are changing because they're being questioned. So it really depends on what happens in the next few years.
A lot also depends, I like what Harshali had mentioned, that she's telling her daughter, be financially independent, get a studio apartment, and then think about marriage. So it's what they're observing in your own homes. If you grew up seeing your mother cook for your father, wait on him, eat food after he eats, and you are the second class citizen in your own house, then that is what the girl will take to her married home. But if you're giving them equal rights, you're saying be financially. Isn't that?
Yes. In fact, many of the people I've had conversations with, I have suggested this outright, that instead of spending 1 crore on the marriage, please get the daughter a home.
Give it to her.
That's
the dowry you should give to the girl.
Or at least a partial payment, so that in case the marriage is not working out, it is not because of financial dependence that she chooses to remain in the marriage. Other reasons are that's her choice. Yes, so what you said is very important. And I also think that because we have seen mothers, sisters, grandmothers suffer or kind of always be very mindful of coming up to other people's expectations of them, that that there is a change.
Certainly. And also, I think it's not only for the girls, I think it's also for all kids now, that you want them to have their own unit. They may stay together, but I think it's in our generation's mind that have your own little space, so that tomorrow, even if you need to stay there for a little bit of break, or just to kind of take away, then you have that. You have that option.
So is this breakdown of a joint family actually leading to the change in the letting the woman be more assertive if she's not living with her in-laws, and she's and
I think you can be assertive wherever you are. I think it's very personal. I think it's very human-centric, and I think women are coming to realize that they can say no. Earlier there was no option.
Very important.
That you couldn't even think that if I say for myself, I couldn't think I would tell my parents, no, I won't do this. That was never a thought in my head. And now if I have teenage children, adult children, and they're very comfortable saying, no, I'm not comfortable doing this. That's because we've given them that option or that exposure that you can say no to us, and it's okay. Nobody is going to judge you for refusing to do something, and you're not going to be seen in a very negative light. But as parents, it is my duty to make sure the kids feel comfortable telling me if they are not comfortable. That was not there for our generation, I feel.
Which is, I think that is the learning also. But Namita, there are also two sides, two people in a marriage. There is also the boy. So, you educate the girl, you give her independence, but at the same time tell the boy also it's okay, that the girl is an equal, and, he also has a role to play, giving her equal space. So, you also have a daughter who's married. So, I'm seeing there's a generation change. So, how do you see their marriage, and how do you see their relationship?
So, I think to start with, I'm just going to say that, we're talking about girls, but also what is important is that we talk about boys and how we condition our boys and what we tell them, right? We tell them that if a girl can do it, so can you. And similarly, we tell the girls, if a boy can do it, so can you. Let us not put gender biases into our children. I think, Priya, taking off from what you said, so I have a small story to tell here. Our daughter in 2021 was actually diagnosed with an issue, and she was here in Delhi with us. She doesn't live in the country, and she started her treatment, and the treatment lasted almost 8 months. Her husband, who also lives in the UK, packed his bags, he put his work on hold, and he came here to be with her. He came here to be with her, that was his choice. But I also must say, his parents gave 100% support to his decision. They didn't once question him to say that, oh, you're going away, what about your job, what are you going to do, you've just got a home, you have to pay your down payment, you have your mortgage. They didn't question him at all. I think that kind of support that you get, and in a marriage, in any relationship, it doesn't necessarily need to be a marriage. It can be a relationship. Today, living with someone for 3 years, 4 years, tantamounts to being married to the person, right? A piece of paper is not going to change anything. I think that kind of support when the partners give each other, I think that's a very important part of being in a relationship. I won't even call it a marriage, I just say a relationship.
But if it was the girl who did that, we would not be talking about it. We would have just taken it for granted. The fact that your son-in-law is doing it, so that is something that is, hopefully we will soon take it for granted that it doesn't matter if the woman who does it or the man. This is what relationships are all about, and which needs
But
to
also, I think we need to talk about it.
We need to talk
because what happens is that one person's story has become another person's inspiration. So if more, today, if two men change their mind or having seen this program and having heard her story, that is an impact you're making. That small change in them that, oh, I don't need to be celebrated for it. If my wife would have done it for me, it's very natural for me to do it. But what is important right now in today's world is to share these stories more and more often and with loud voices so that people get to hear that this is an okay thing to do. Yeah.
I have something to say. So when our daughter was born, Arjun, my husband, was actually in the delivery room with me. And possibly now 31 years ago, that was really, that was really one of those things where, oh my God, your husband went into the delivery room. Today, it's a norm. Okay, nobody will talk about it and say that, okay, oh, my husband went in or my partner went in. Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, there is a change that is happening, and I think it's important, like you said, to talk about it, because you have to sensitize people to it and say that, what, it's okay. You guys are in a marriage, you're 50-50 partners. Do for each other. And I think that's the important part.
And the fact that a guy can come and stay in the in-laws' home without saying it's, something to his...
That was a big deal. Yeah.
That was a big deal.
I give him full marks for that.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break, but stay with us because we're going to keep the conversation going. So stay with us. Hello and welcome back to We Women Want. Today we're taking a look at the changing nature of relationships, and is it really because the women are changing? But even, a very interesting example and a very welcome example, the men are also stepping up, stepping forward and, being a part of the change. It's not just the, because it has to be done with the, both sides.
I think the males are kind of struggling to accept the liberated woman in many ways. Like, so if we come down to the basics of day-to-day life, the fact that a woman can their wife or his wife can take a stand, but he's not seen his mother do it, is quite a change for him to adapt to. Has not seen a grandparent do it, it's quite a change to adapt to. However, I do think that the education makes a difference, that the exposure that children are subject to these days really helps, because it kind of minimizes the impact of a liberated woman. However, I do think that men still struggle to accept it. And
you
it
do
does
a lot
raise...
of counseling when this comes up and the men can't
Yes,
deal
I
with
do. Yes, I do. And even the very so-called, I think the qualities related to modernism as education, well-placed career, and belongs to a family with a certain lifestyle. So if we talk about that category, even that males in that category kind of question the fact that because their expectation is, if my mother is sick, why can't she stay at home? She needs to take the day off. And the woman goes back and says, why can't you do it? It's your mom.
Yeah.
Right. Right? So it's down to that kind of basic questioning. And like I said, all change begins with a question. So the fact that they question each other, I think facilitates the change.
Yeah, I see. In fact, we did a show with the marriage counselor, and she's saying a lot of women, Harshali, are not, they're objecting to the Kanyadan part. Though there is a whole tradition, and there is, behind all these rituals, there is some reasoning and all. But they're saying like we don't want to be labeled as that. So that change is.
It's a welcome change. I think,
It's a
as I
welcome
said,
change.
it's very personal. People who subscribe to that notion or want to continue it or take it forward, it is their choice to do so. Uh, Personally, if you ask me, I would say that it was done with, I married a Sikh gentleman. So, unme Anand Karaj hota hai. So, there's no Kanyadan there. But I felt that I'm from a Hindu family, so I wanted the whole Saat Fere and all that. So, I didn't question it at that time. But then, as I grew up, because I got married at 21, as I grew up, I realized that I don't want to do that to my daughter. When my daughter gets married, or when I'm getting my son married, or my son gets married to an Indian girl, if she says that I want to do that, that's her choice. But if my daughter says that I don't want to do it, or she says, I won't have an issue. I mean, and eventually you have to realize what is right for you. I don't think anybody telling you that these things need to be done, this is the culture, this is the tradition, we never question. She's so right, and I completely relate to this, that it's the questions which get you to the next step, I feel. So,
Karwa Chauth,
Yes,
yeah. A lot of men keep Karwa Chauth.
but I
along
keep
with
it. So, I keep Karwa
Does your
Chauth.
husband keep it with
He
you?
does.
So then see that's...
So I never asked him. I said, why are you keeping it? Because I take a chutti and sit at home. But he goes for work. So he's doing surgeries. He's doing everything on an empty stomach. And I'm telling him, why are you? I mean, you don't need to do it. So he said, you stop, I'll stop. So it's that balance, I think, that you come to realize that you maintain. And nobody is asking me to do it. Sikhs don't do it. But from the very first day, because it was my choice, I wanted to do it. It is not for his long life. I just want to say thank you. That, everything should be okay. The whole year has passed. And it's just my way of saying thank you. So, as I said, it's a very, very personal and very intimate choice that you make.
But is our generation by large the change makers? Because our kids are learning from us. So
By our generation, you mean the 50s?
sorry, yes. Now the secret, the cat is out of the bag. Yes, perhaps.
So that's the new 20s, right?
That's the new 20s.
I actually
But I
think that
enjoy
we are. I actually think we are the cheese between the two breads. We are the worst hit.
Yes.
Because we have seen, the very traditional caught up value systems I have. And now I see my son who has always questioned everything. And I'm the person who has to balance between the grandparents and
Correct.
the child. So, yeah. Because I want him to have certain freedom, permissions that I never had.
Yeah. So, Namita, how do you're also doing this balancing act. How much of it is largely your experiences that, now we know that it's okay to be okay, it's okay to be yourself, kind of an attitude that you bring to the house. So you, in terms of your attitudes, how does that pass on to your daughter? Is there any difference between you and your daughter?
I would say that's it's a very difficult question to answer because, like you said, you're the sandwich generation. You're actually between your parents and between your children. You don't know where to say that customs and tradition should stop, which is what comes down to us from our parents and our grandparents, and where the children's set of values, because honestly, they know, and I don't mean set of values, I mean, what they have learned or what they pick up or what they research, they're definitely much better read than we are. We still tend to pick up a WhatsApp and say, oh, this is what I got on WhatsApp and this must be true. The kids will do their research and their due diligence to come to a particular answer for themselves. So where is it that you kind of do that blocking between the two? She has obviously fed off a lot of me. I have been a fairly strong influence in her life. I have been a fairly strong parent. But then so has my mother. Even my mother was a very strong parent. She was also a very strong influence in my life. And I think not only for her, I have also been a strong influence for my son. So I think it's a question of not having a gender bias and being an influence on both the children and saying that if it is sauce for the goose, it's sauce for the gander. It does not matter. You cannot say one is okay and one is not okay. So both should be taken on the same plane.
So do you have any different advice for your son versus your daughter, or?
No, literally none that I can say, not as far as their marriage is concerned, their lives are concerned, their earning is concerned, their respect in relationships is concerned. I don't think in anything. If I would tell my son to get married and to have kids, I would tell my daughter to get married and have kids. I don't think I would say one to one and one thing to the other. I think I would say the same thing.
Okay, the having kids part, quickly we're out of time, but now kids, women seem to be postponing kids to a later, career, financial independence is first. But do you see that upsetting the, somewhere the social balance, or if, women you become parents at a later age, is there some, forget the biological clock, but otherwise?
I feel that a couple or a single person should have a child when they feel ready to parent. I don't think it's got to do with age. I don't think it's to do with the number of years they've been married. I think that is the most required respect factor to being a parent.
Okay, my other question is about marriage, because once there was a reason why they said get married young, because by then you are a little more flexible, you are a little more impressionable, both sides. It's usually the man who gets to mold the woman in the old days, but now, so if you're getting into relationships later, that's going to be, more and more difficult to adjust. Would that be an issue for the later generation that's going to get married at a later age?
Certainly, it is going to be an issue, because I think you get so set in your ways, you do get set in your ways, and you want things your way. So it's very difficult to find that middle ground sometimes. And it's not only about getting married later on, even in marriages right now, after a certain age, you want things done in a particular way. You don't want to say yes when you want to say no. And that adjustment, your compromise that we say, becomes slightly more difficult as you go on in life. And because by then you've reached a certain age, you've reached a certain status in life, you've reached a certain maturity, evolution in yourself. So certainly there are going to be pros and cons to whatever decision you may take, whether marrying early or marrying late, having children early, having children late. So it's a 50-50 for everybody. But as she very rightly said, that you need to be ready to put someone before you. That's when you should have children. Otherwise, I would say...
Not when you should get married, no.
No, I think you can grow together. I think the basic respect has to be there. That if that is not there, everything else... I've been married for 26 years, and I can very safely say that, if love can come, respect doesn't.
Yes.
If the person does not respect you in the first go, they're not going to do it later. Okay. And saying that I'll be the heroine and I will save him and I will, make him into this perfect man, that's never going to happen. That's basic.
Okay, you want to add the last word to you, Namita, in terms of this, the marriage part?
So I think marriage is it's a compromise. If you, the Hindi kahavat that they say, shadi wo laddu hai, jo khaye pachta hai, aur jo na khaye wo bhi pachta hai, but that's a fact. That, but when you're in the marriage, you have to give it your 100%, whether it is the girl or it is the boy. The compromise has to come from both ways. 50-50. Marriage is a partnership. It is not, you're not working for somebody.
A small child.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, I think we've learned a lot, all of us, and thank you so much for sharing your experiences, especially Namita and everyone. Thank you for this conversation, and we'll see you again same time next week.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.